Hey YouTubians, this is going to be a response to Pyro again, and it's also going to be another video on metaphysics and empiricism, explanation and meaning, all that sort of malarkey. Anyway, so Pyro's last video, or one of the last videos, was about his conception of the metaphysical, and he seems, Pyro, if you're watching, I think this is fair to say, you're quite dismissive of what I would perceive to be the metaphysical and metaphysics at large. So I'm going to be defending two theses here. The first one is that I think this is humble enough. Metaphysics is an important area of investigation. My second thesis, which is slightly stronger, is about empiricism, and there are certain areas of human inquiry that can not be explored through empiricism or empirical means. So there are certain important areas of human inquiry that can't be sort of explored through science. That's what I'm going to say. That are not moral issues. I'll just add that as a disclaimer because obviously we can't explore too many moral issues through a descriptive theory. Anyway, so that said, I think there certainly are important things that we can learn through metaphysics, and that it is a valid branch of investigation in human inquiry, and it's not merely some outdated method of understanding, some piece of iniquity that we still have left with us. I think it's much more important than that. So, my first point to demonstrate this is just what I said in the last video. I'll repeat that because that supports this point, and it's that metaphysics helps us frame empirical knowledge itself. So without a metaphysic, you cannot actually frame what the science is doing. I also think to make such a claim about metaphysics, when metaphysics is by definition first principles, is if one says that there are no valid metaphysical claims, I think that would be a metaphysical claim in itself. So it's almost self-defeating, but that's kind of a not what Pyro's saying. But regardless, I believe that metaphysics is an important issue, and if we have empirical knowledge we may all agree upon, it may be a metaphysical argument, and the metaphysical argument may be more important, more interesting, more foundational in some respects. So let's take, for example, an issue in philosophy of mind. Now I'm going to reconstruct Chalmers' argument into an argument and a distinction that I agree with, which is the distinction between the empirical and the metaphysical explanations of consciousness. So let's say we have all the empirical explanations of the brain, the physical sort of entity which we believe responsible for consciousness. We know how the large macrostructures of the brain work in language production and vision. We know how the neurons interact. We know everything about Hebbian learning. We know all the learning methods. We know the firing of the synapses, the physical, chemical relations, how the microtubules work, even down to the subatomic structure, even down to the particles, the quantum or string particles at the very bottom. Now, Theorist A says something like the following. Great, now we know exactly how the brain, the physical entity, correlates with the mental entity, the mind. So we've tracked we've tracked the correspondence completely. There's still this mind, and so he can have sort of a remote control view of the brain, and we could argue about that. Person B might say, on the other hand, someone like Matt, he might say, well, no, what we've discovered is how consciousness is embodied in a particular living organism, and it's this embodied nature of consciousness which it gives rise to the subjective experience. I might say, on the other hand, no, it's more abstract than that. It's the functional architecture which could be replicated to give rise to the same experience. So we could all argue on these metaphysical issues, and I believe there'd be valid and important metaphysical issues to argue on, which cannot be resolved through empirical investigations. There are so many other things that cannot be resolved through empirical investigations. For example, let's stretch that philosophy of mind analogy slightly further. So instead of having a complete idea of the functioning of the brain, we have a complete idea of the functioning of the universe. We know exactly, without contradiction, how the universe will function, and we can predict it with certainty. Now, and let's say it's even a formula that Einstein or Hawking would be proud of. It could fit on a t-shirt, and it would be a complete and apt description of the universe. I think there'd still be room for disagreement with what the physical laws are doing. I think there'd be room for disagreement about our ontology. So Pyro might say something like the following: in order to explain what is being observed, all we need is sense perceptions and relativity and so on and so on. Quine, who's also a very staunch empiricist, might say something like, well, physics explains the world, physics depends on maths, math depends on set theory, so the only things that we need to hold exist are sets. Other people may have disagreements with rather than sets existing, people might say physics describes a world. It describes a state of affairs. Other people might differ still, and there'd still be valid arguments into this. I don't think I don't think empirical science can sort of answer important things that I would consider metaphysically important. For example, I want a good definition of causality. I want a good definition of the nature of possibility, necessity, and impossibility. I want a good, strict, black and white definition of existence and non-existence. And I also want a way to... I want truth. I want to say things, and I want other people to say things that have truth conditionals, and I want to cash out the metaphysics of what makes it true when someone says a true statement. I want to explore the nature of time, whether the past exists, whether the future exists, what the passage of time is itself, whether there's an ontological present. I want to explore all these issues, which I consider are valid and important areas of human inquiry that I don't think empirical science, empirical methods alone can ever answer. So that's my defense of metaphysics, and I'll probably make some more videos because this subject's very interesting. Peace.